Hello and welcome to today's video. This is going to be a fun one. We're going to review my Biomesight stool test. So we're going to go over my test. This is a test that I took myself. I paid money for this test. This was not free. This isn't a shout out or a sponsored video or anything. I do have an affiliate link. You can use the link below to get 20% off. And if you use my link, shoot me an email, let me know you used it, and I'll review your Biomesight free. But my goal is that today I'm going to go over my test and I'm going to share a lot of valuable insights that you can apply to your test or just take away as just some useful information. I also think it will be nice because you're going to get to see how I work when I'm looking at a microbiome test, because I think the way that I work is a little bit different and it's a bit alternative. You know, I'm kind of like a low kill, no kill approach. I really don't like antimicrobials. I really try to correct dysbiosis in a building and a nourishing and nurturing kind of way. So I'm going to show you that with my stool test. So you also get to see how good my gut health is. So you can judge me as well. So let's get started. Let's look at the test. So here we are. This is my Biomesight report. One of the reasons I really like using Biomesight is the report that they provide is very useful. It's very easy to read. They have some fairly detailed descriptions and they provide you with a lot of actionable steps. It can feel a little bit overwhelming, but I'm going to break that down for you so that you can understand how to make it a little bit easier for yourself. So first of all, you'll see my overall gut wellness score is 83.36%, which is pretty good. I never did a stool test before when I was really sick, but if I did, I imagine I would have struggled to get a score over 50. I was completely disabled, bedbound. I was eating like 5 foods. My diversity must have been horrible. Since then, I can eat almost everything. I eat a bunch of polyphenols. I can eat all the fibers, plenty of FODMAPs. I can also eat carbohydrates, and you're going to see maybe I've been eating a little bit too many carbohydrates, but we'll look at that. But basically, I can eat anything and everything, and I think that that's one reason that I have seen my score come to say like 83. I think it's actually pretty good when you consider where I came from. So if you scroll down, you can see you've got these 4 categories. You've got pathobionts. These are like potentially pathogenic or dysbiotic organisms. Commensals. These are like the organisms that are supposed to be living in your gut. They're kind of like always there kind of thing. They're like what you would consider to be like your residents, like the people that live and work in the city, you know. We've also got probiotics. So these are specifically beneficial organisms. So these have health promoting attributes and have been correlated positively with healthy outcomes. And then we also have diversity, which is the overall difference and variation in your microbiome as a whole. And you're going to see here that my pathobionts is great, 100%. Diversity is a little bit low. Commensals are a little bit low, and probiotics are a little bit low. And it doesn't necessarily mean the numbers are low, it means the scores are a little bit low. Let's just go straight in and get started. So we're starting with probiotics. And to me, this is the most interesting part of basically the whole test. So my Akkermansia is within the green range, but it is a little bit low. Akkermansia is a really important organism for the health of your mucosa. A lot of people that have issues with the mucosa, so you'd be thinking like gastritis, ulcers, someone that has a lot of mucus. If you're having problems with like specifically the mucosal lining, Akkermansia is a big player. The thing that's really tricky about Akkermansia is you can't really supplement. You can't take Akkermansia supplements. They do exist now, but I don't think they're very effective. The only way you can really help Akkermansia to grow is to provide it the best environment. And the best way you can do that is to provide a lot of different types of polyphenols. So polyphenols are things in foods that give you different colors and flavors and smells and aromas. So think about the whole eat the rainbow kind of thing. That's really good for your Akkermansia. And also, kind of ironically, fasting is actually very good for Akkermansia. As you can imagine, when you're not eating anything, you're producing mucosal secretions from your own digestive tract, and this is what feeds Akkermansia. So the best way you can get this up, which is exactly what I'm doing, is trying to eat as much diversity as possible in the colors and varieties of foods that I'm having, and using fasting. I eat probably 30 to 50 different fruits and vegetables every single week, and I do a 36-hour fast once a week as well. So I've kind of covered both of those bases, but the thing is, I was already doing that before I did this test. And you're going to see a common theme. The test kind of confirmed the things that I was already doing. This is the way that listening to your symptoms works. This is what having a good understanding of how your body actually works will do. You'll find that you'll have built yourself a plan, and then you'll do testing, and it's just telling you to do the things that you are already doing anyway. So moving on from Akkermansia, we come down to Bifidobacterium, and this is also slightly low. It's not in the red range. This genuinely surprised me. I thought my Bifidobacterium would be absolute 0, but apparently not, and I'm quite happy about that because Bifidobacterium is overall, in my experience, the organism that has the most significant influence on individuals' health. I would say probably 60 to 80% of the time. I'd put it more on that top end, maybe 70 to 80% of the time. When I'm looking at a stool test or I'm working with somebody that has a complex chronic health presentation, Bifidobacterium is almost always is low or zero. We've also seen a big dip in Bifidobacterium since COVID and the COVID pokey treatment. And it has been shown that the spike protein that is produced by COVID and the spiky treatment reduces the amount of Bifidobacterium in the gut. And this is why one of the most important things that you can do to help yourself recover from long COVID is work on the probiotic situation, especially the Bifidobacterium organisms. So if you scroll down here, it actually has a bunch of suggestions. So first of all, it gives you a probiotic that you could take. The reason that it's suggesting Bifidobacterium longum here is Bifidobacterium longum specifically has this really cool function where it can eat certain prebiotics and even the polysaccharides that you produce in your own gut. And it can convert these into other prebiotic substances that feed other probiotic organisms. So just by taking Bifidobacterium longum, you can increase your Bifidobacterium infantis, your Bifidobacterium adosolentis, your Bifidobacterium brevis, all of the different Bifidobacterium organisms you can increase by making sure that you have a good Bifidobacterium longum concentration. There are some other stool tests you can do that show you the specific types of Bifidobacterium, and what I commonly see is people that have really severe health problems, they tend to be zero on the longum. Bifidobacterium longum is really, really important. So Bifidobacterium longum is important, but you could also add other types of Bifidobacterium. So a broad spectrum probiotic that has several different types of Bifidobacterium would be the way that I would go about it. But I would make sure that you have Bifidobacterium longum in there as well. Up here, you have a section that shows you what types of prebiotics you could be taking. So you've got 2-fucosal lactose. So this is like the HMOs, human milk oligosaccharides. You have acacia fiber, guar gum, lactulose. You have a bunch of different options down here. I would suggest that you don't look here just yet. We're going to go to the bottom of the report and it kind of tallies up all of the suggestions and presents them all in one place. This makes looking at this test a lot easier. It also does the same with the food recommendations. But overall, let's just look at these foods and see what the common theme is. First of all, look at the different colors. You have so many different colors here. You have orange, you have green, you have chickpeas. They have this kind of brownish color. And also think about chickpeas. They have that kind of little skin on the outside. You've got red cranberries, green peas over here. Look at all these different colors. Colors are really, really important. You see in this suggestion, plant-based diet, look at all the different colors. So eat the rainbow. But also a lot of these are higher FODMAP vegetables. So I don't know about acacia tree. Personally, I don't really think acacia tree is actually a food that you eat. I think it is really more of a supplement. I don't know why it's even here. But if you look at all of these, apples, high FODMAP, apricots, high FODMAP, artichokes, asparagus, bananas are higher FODMAP if they're more green, but they are high FODMAP. Basically, almost all of these, or let's say 80% of these, are high FODMAP, and the ones that aren't are high polyphenol. And you're going to see this as a common theme basically through the whole thing. Almost all of the suggestions are pushing for more polyphenols and the FODMAP vegetables, so basically fiber. So coming down, we're going to see Blautia, and I don't really know much about this organism. What I find very interesting though is in this little description here, it explains that it's used to support the digestion of complex carbohydrates. One of the things that I have found is I potentially have been slightly overeating complex carbohydrates. So this would be things like bread, potatoes, rice, all of these starchy things. As we go down in my test, you're going to see I have a slight elevation of other organisms that are, you could consider them mildly dysbiotic, that have a preference for eating complex and starchy carbohydrates. And it's probably because those things are high that this one is low. But you'll also see here, common theme, all of these prebiotics or all of these recommended foods, they're not high FODMAP. These are all polyphenol based. Like green tea doesn't have any FODMAPs, it's the polyphenols. So polyphenols are so important. And I've been saying this for such a long time. Everyone looks at the fibers and saying, oh, we need to take prebiotics, and they can be important, but polyphenols are really, really important. So this is something that I could work to improve, but I don't think this is like the biggest problem when we're looking at my stool test. Coming down here, we have Fecalibacterium. This one surprised me that it was in the optimal range. I don't know why it surprised me so much. Overall, my gut is quite good now, but having experienced such a disease state, it's always a bit surprising when you look at your gut and you're like, oh, it's actually pretty good. That's almost surprising. So Fecalibacterium is a bit like the Akkermansia that we looked at earlier. The best way that you can influence it is to, again, the mucosal secretions and the polyphenols. So this one really does respond to polyphenols, but it does affect the mucosal health quite a lot as well. You can't really take probiotics for this. They don't exist. So you really have to modulate using like food, diet, and supplements and things like that. And the best thing is the polyphenols. Down here, this is probably the biggest problem I have in my whole test is my Lactobacillus. They are really, really low. Now, I actually wasn't too sad about seeing this because working on improving Lactobacillus is actually quite easy because almost all of the kind of traditional fermented foods like sauerkraut, yogurt, kefir, kimchi, these all have lactobacillus in. And I'm at a point now where I can really eat quite a lot of fermented foods without having any problems. So I'm just loading fermented foods in. Right now, I'm really enjoying kimchi. I don't know what it is, but there's this like intuitive pull towards kimchi and I'm just trusting it. And I think that I'll see some improvements here. What I think is really interesting to notice is that there is no orange or red on the left-hand side of the scale. And the test is implying that lactobacillus is potentially beneficial, but there is not really a negative consequence to having a low amount. And I would kind of disagree. I think the fact that lactobacillus is in basically every single fermented food that exists on planet Earth tells you that it is quite an important organism for you to have in your gut, because ancestrally we would have been consuming fermented foods all of the time, not just because of the taste and because of dietary diversity or variety, but because we needed to ferment foods literally to survive. Over the winters, if we didn't ferment the food that we got from the harvest, we would run out of food. This was a way of preserving and surviving. So the fact that there's no low range here on lactobacillus to me seems a bit odd, and I do think it is maybe more of a problem than it is indicating here. Like, for example, this score being in the green means it didn't influence my overall gut health score in the negative, and I think it should. I think that this is too low, and this is something that I am actively going to work on. As we come down, you're also going to see, again, a common theme. Lots of these foods down here are prebiotic, either in the fact that they have FODMAPs or that they have a good amount of polyphenols. Acacia tree seems to be high in both of these, so maybe I'll be trying some acacia tree fiber at some point. But looking through these, like, I eat a good amount of these now. So chickpeas, I have these. Sometimes cheese, I have probably too much cheese. Green tea, I don't really like it. I think it's quite boring. Mushrooms, I eat a lot of mushrooms. I have some onions. I have a lot of yogurt down here. Strawberries, not really a big fan of. This is also just suggestions. There are a lot of other foods that do feed lactobacillus that aren't on this list. So it's just giving you some examples and some things that obviously they need to have some data to provide these suggestions. There might be a food that is even better than all of these things, but they just don't have data to kind of back it up. So that's kind of one of the biggest limitations with, like, let's say modern science. So this one also in a really good range, Rosburia. This is also primarily modulated by the polyphenol content of the food. Mine's slightly on the lower range, but genuinely, like, again, considering where I came from, I was just happy to see it even vaguely in the green. I would like to see this increase over time, and maybe I'll do another stool test in a year or two. But I think the best way that I can improve this is, again, working on that polyphenol content and improving those other probiotics that are more direct intervention probiotics, like the Lactobacillus and Bifidobacterium. Down here we have Ruminococcus. That's a really fun one to say. Just try to say it 3 times fast and don't make any swear words when you do it. It's a bit of a hard one to do. So this is part of the Clostridia class. This is what you consider like a probiotic Clostridia. Or maybe you've only heard that Clostridia is bad, but again, that's not true. A lot of the pathogenic organisms, like for example, E. coli, you always hear about Salmonella and how bad that is. There are beneficial strains of E. coli as well. And actually one of the best ways that you can protect yourself from pathogenic E. coli is to have a good, healthy community of beneficial probiotic E. coli. So this one is nicely in range. Again, look at these recommended foods. These are all polyphenol based and they're actually all spices, which is really very interesting. Also, you're going to notice the probiotics that are recommended are Bifidobacterium longum. So again, longum makes a nice environment for other organisms. And we have a lactobacillus strain over here as well. This is rhamnosus. So again, we'd probably see that as I work to improve my lactobacillus, this would actually become better. I mean, it's already pretty good. It's already in the optimal range, but it could be better. And that's basically it for the probiotics. Now we're going to move on to the commensals. So these are more like the residents that live inside of our gut more permanently. Actually, there's a really nice description here. It says, while commensal bacteria are an integral part of the normal balanced gut microbiome, a persistent overgrowth of these bacteria have been correlated with various disease states. So this is what I mean. These are organisms that are supposed to be here, but when they're tending one way or the other, they can create potentially some problems. And this is one of the areas where I think I have the most work to do. So first of all, we have borderline overgrowth of Bacteroidetes. And this test actually breaks it down a little bit. As you're going to see down here, you've got different types in that subcategory of Bacteroidetes. So like my bacteroids are within this green range. If we come down, the Prevotella is slightly elevated in this yellow range. And what that kind of indicates is that this is more of a Prevotella problem. So working on the Prevotella more directly is going to probably have a positive influence on this overall Bacteroidetes score. This is why I had said just slightly previously that maybe I have been slightly over consuming refined carbohydrates like rice and pasta and potatoes and these kind of starchy carbohydrates, seeing that this is slightly high. And as you come down, you're going to see a recommendation of taking lactulose. And you would think, well, how does lactulose work here? So the idea is that it's not that lactulose kills Bacteroidetes, it's that it feeds other things that are antagonistic to it. For example, the probiotics like the Lactobacillus and Bifidobacterium. It's also very possible that my Bacteroidetes are slightly high, not even because of the way that I've been eating, but simply because my Lactobacillus and Bifidobacterium are slightly low. And as I work on improving the Lactobacillus and Bifidobacterium levels, you might see a natural drop off of this coming back down to the green range just through that change alone. But I'm going to work on dual mechanisms. I'm going to try and work on those probiotic side, and I'm also reducing the carbohydrate intake that I'm having in my diet. So coming down here, these ones are within range. They're on the higher limit, but what you're going to note down here is, again, we aren't killing them. We are feeding things that are antagonistic to it. So overall high fiber foods, so like apples. I've eaten a lot of apples recently. I've had probably 2 apples a day for maybe the last 10 days. Apricots, artichoke. Again, look, what is the common theme here between all of these foods that we're looking at? Look at the different colors and look at how many of them are FODMAPs. FODMAP, 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 FODMAP. Almost all of them, they're high FODMAPs. Carrots aren't. Don't think beetroots are. Other than that, they're all high FODMAP. I don't think oranges are as well. But other than that, they're all high FODMAP. And also you have a suggestion here of Bacillus coagulans. So this is a soil-based organism. The way that soil-based organisms work is they help to modulate the composition of the microbiome. They don't permanently live in the gut. They don't reside in there in the same way that the commensals or the probiotics do. They're classified as non-colonizing organisms. So in a way, they kind of work a little bit more like a gardener. They go through, they do a lot of cleaning, and they like take out all of the weeds and they clean up all of the mess that has been created, and they create a nice environment for other things to thrive better. And then if you come down here to the Prevotella, which is where I do have my probably slightly problematic elevated marker, the suggestions here are reduce simple sugars. So this is like what it means by simple sugars is, you can see in the picture here, it's refined carbohydrates, but that also have sweeteners in. So think like cookies or sweet pastries or cake and things like that. I'm not really a sweet person. I don't really like eating those things anyway. So not eating those is probably the easiest thing in the world for me, but also reduce carbohydrates. Now I do like carbohydrates. I do like my pizza. I do like pasta. I love rice. But for some time, I'm going to reduce. And again, it says reduce. It doesn't say remove. It doesn't say eliminate. It doesn't say you can never eat these things ever again. But you can modulate the microbiome by reducing them. What I've been inclined to do from feedback of other approaches that I've been doing, research that I've been doing, and also this test is to try doing the GAPS diet for a little while. I'm not doing it extremely. I'm doing it gently. I'm doing it in a more attuned way than I've ever done it before. But one big part of the GAPS diet is the removal of starchy carbohydrates. And if you do that, I'm going to remove these and I'm going to remove these. So it kind of philosophically fits with my vision of what healing is, but also I have a test here saying you should probably do this. If you look in the prebiotics and other ingredients, again, you're going to see curcumin, turmeric, so polyphenols, triphala, polyphenols, slippery elm. This is a mucosal agent, but it's also got polyphenols. Olive leaf, potential antimicrobial, also has polyphenols. Niacin, this is B3. Interestingly, you can produce B3 from your probiotic bacteria. So if we have more probiotics, again, maybe it will have an inhibitory effect. And lauric acid, this comes from coconut oil. So coconut oil, really, really nice, gentle antimicrobial agent, actually very underrated. So coming down from here, this is in the green range. Honestly, I don't know anything about this, so I'm just going to skip it. My oxalobacter is very low. One of the common things that I hear with oxalobacter is that if you don't have enough oxalobacter, you can't metabolize or process oxalates. The thing is, that's not true. There are lots of other organisms that do the same job that oxalobacter does, especially the Lactobacillus and the Bifidobacterium probiotics. It's very possible that if I'm having a 0% and I literally am measuring for like a complete 0, I might have completely killed oxalobacter from my gut. And the only way you can really get it back is if you re-inoculated from some way. So this might mean that at some point I need to do like an FMT, because you can't take oxalobacter probiotics. If it's completely gone, the only way I'm going to get it back is through some kind of intervention like that. But overall, I'm not really that worried because I can eat oxalates now and I don't really have any problems from oxalates. I have had kidney stones in the past, but I think that that was more due to the fact that I was living in mold and I had colonized some mold, and the mold in your gut produces a lot of oxalates. And I also gave myself vitamin D toxicity at one point, which can give you kidney stones. I think it was more connected to those things than the fact that I don't have oxalobacter. So overall, I'm not super worried about this. And then we have ruminococcus as again, a very good one to try and say 3 times fast. Nervous, I'm in the optimal range. Not really too much to say about this, so skipping past it. Streptococcus, also basically in 0. That's completely fine. Streptococcus is a normal probiotic. It can actually be beneficial on the skin. It's a normal part of the skin flora, but it can cause a lot of problems. You can get like strep throat. You can get I've seen a lot of strep strep and staph dysbiosis, they can be really connected. I see them almost together all the time. Very interesting down here. It recommends colostrum to reduce streptococcus. I'm actually taking colostrum right now, so it's not going to kill it because I don't have any anyway. But one of the other things that seems to really help with this is the soil-based probiotics, like the Bacillus subtilis. And this one, don't know anything about it, so I'm not going to comment. And overall, that's basically my whole test because my pathobiance is 100%. This one is completely fine. I'm just going to skip through all of these because they're all good. I'm going to show them so you can look, like my biophilia, yeah, it's in good range, just so you can see where all of my levels are. But there's not really too much to comment on. There's nothing to really comment about it, so I'm just kind of going to skip through them. So here, if you want to have a look, but very little to comment. I was actually surprised to see the E. coli low because I did have some E. coli food poisoning. I believe it was E. coli food poisoning, but it seems to be completely fine. I did do a lot of killing. I don't think I did the right thing when I did a lot of killing. That is maybe why I have that, but I did all the killing you can imagine. Don't recommend killing generally. Learn from my mistakes so you don't have to make them. But yeah, Methanobrevibacter is fine. This one's fine. All fine. So just skip through all of these because there is still some more stuff to see. One thing that I do like about the Biomesight is that there's a little analysis that you're going to see here. So this is where we look at some of the things that are being produced by your microbiome, and it can give us some really interesting information. I found this really, really fascinating. So acetate, you would expect that I would be slightly higher than the midpoint. I believe because this is produced by the Bacteroidetes that I have slightly elevated, and the lack of the Bifidobacterium that produces the butyrate here. You can see I still have a good amount though. I'm not super low. Like I'm not on like a 0%. I'm still producing a good amount, which is really nice. Does need improvement, and I'm going to work on it, but it's not too bad, all things considered. And again, these are the three: the propionate, the butyrate, and the acetate. These are the short chain fatty acids that you produce in your gut from your gut bacteria breaking down fibers. Ideally, you want your butyrate to be the highest one. This is the most important one. If your butyrate is low, it's because you're missing the organisms that produce the butyrate, and you've got more of these organisms that are producing the propionate and the acetate. And we want to try to change that balance a little bit because the butyrate is kind of biased towards better digestive health and overall better health and wellness outcomes. My acetylcholine was within range. I found this part very interesting. So I still experience some symptoms that are like ADHD. And one of the things that you commonly see in people that have ADHD-like behaviors is very low dopamine and very low baseline dopamine. And seeing this on a test was a little bit shocking for me because by the looks of it, I'm functioning with 1/4 of the motivation of an average person. And that is a little bit how it feels. I feel like it takes me 4 times more effort to do something that a normal person can do. What's really important to understand is that dopamine is produced by your gut flora. You have all of these neurotransmitters in greater concentrations in your gut than you have anywhere else. I'd expect to see big improvements in this dopamine level by working on improving my probiotic presentation. And this is why I'm saying, like, even though the Bifidobacterium wasn't in the red and even though the Lactobacillus was in the green, I think that that is slightly wrong because look at my dopamine. Like, this is too low. It shouldn't be this low. And those organisms have a strong influence on your dopamine concentrations. So even though this is giving me like a perfect score and saying that I'm within range, I'm functioning like somebody with ADHD. But this is actually biochemically produced. This is coming from my gut. This is a gut dysbiosis caused symptom set. I'm going to work on this. This is going to improve over time. GABA is close enough. It is slightly lower. Everyone has slightly different ranges. Just because you're below the midpoint doesn't mean it's bad. You know, if it's this far off the midpoint, then yeah, maybe it's a problem. But this is close enough. This can be connected to, as it says here, associated benefits, calmness and improved sleep. Overall, I'm calmer than I've ever been, and my sleep tends to be absolutely fantastic. I would love a little bit more calmness. But again, I'm expecting that this is probably going to improve as I work on that Lactobacillus and Bifidobacterium part of the picture. And this was the part of the test that I was the most proud of. Look at my histamine levels compared to the midpoint. This is coming from somebody that had such severe histamine intolerance. I was living on a restricted diet of 5 foods. I had severe histamine issues. I had severe mast cell activation syndrome. And now look at me. My histamine levels are so low. Maybe I've actually gone too far the other way and now I'm too far away from the midpoint. So histamine is connected to wakefulness and neuromodulation, as you see here. Again, neuromodulation, you could be thinking about ADHD style behaviors. There could be some kind of influence there. And wakefulness, my wakefulness is fine. I'm awake and I'm alert during the day. I don't have a problem with that. One of the things that I do find very interesting though is I actually have a tendency to prefer foods that are high histamine now that I have healed my histamine intolerance. As in, I will eat a lot of cheese, a lot of fermented meats. I live in Portugal at the moment and you can buy chorizo and all these different like fermented sausages and fermented bacon, and it's just amazing. It's like I'm in heaven. And I can eat all of these things and I eat all the fermented foods, like the kimchi. I just love it. I just have this tendency to just be drawn towards these high histamine foods. So it's just interesting to notice that. But I'm really proud of this as somebody that had severe histamine intolerance to now see my histamine levels so low. just absolutely crazy. Now, this one, norepinephrine, I'm not sure how accurate this is because look at the quantity that we're looking at. The midpoint is 0.02% and I'm at 0.00%. This must be very hard to measure, you know, and again, even with the histamine, you're at the point where these kinds of things do get very hard to measure. But again, it potentially could be connected to what I was describing earlier with that gut dysbiosis presentation with the ADHD style behavior. Could be connected to that. And then I saw the serotonin as well. And this also made me think about the ADHD situation. Again, I'm functioning on under 1/4 of what an average person would. Now, my sleep is fine. My memory tends to be a bit poor, especially my long-term memory. Appetite regulation is fine. I don't really have a problem with that. Digestion is pretty good most of the time. Mood regulation, I do struggle with that a little bit. But I think, again, it's tied in with that ADHD picture. Libido, fine, no problem. So again, I do think that working on that Lactobacillus, Bifidobacterium kind of overall probiotic picture is going to significantly improve this. And maybe if I went back and did this, like I said, 5 years ago, my serotonin would have been on 0.01 or something. So yes, these are still low. These are indicators that I have room for improvement. So that's good. That means that the way that I'm feeling now is probably going to improve over time, which is good because while I feel a hell of a lot better, I still want to feel even better than this. And I think that pretty much wraps it up. Beta-glucuronidase, this is important so your body will use glucuronidation to bind certain toxins, especially estrogen-based toxins, and excrete them from the gut. If you have extremely high beta-glucuronidase, you're going to break that binding down, you're going to reabsorb those toxins, and you're basically going to be overwhelmed with estrogen-based symptoms. There's a lot you can do for this. One of the things I'm doing that I really like is broccoli sprouts. I have them as a supplement, but you can also grow your own broccoli sprouts. It's a really nice way to do it. Very, very affordable and very easy to do. Mine is slightly elevated, but it's not elevated enough that I would want to take a supplement to kind of directly counteract it. If it was really high, you could use something like calcium D-glucarate and maybe other things like DIM that could help you with estrogen metabolism and removal from your body. Now, this one I found very interesting. So d-lactate, I actually have a video on d-lactate intolerance and the associated symptoms are spot on. Fatigue and brain fog. These are the two most common symptoms. Just briefly, if you have d-lactate intolerance, what this means is when you produce L-lactate, which is the normal form of, like, you know, when you work out, when you do some training or you exercise, you produce lactic acid. Your body can take this lactic acid, bring it back to your liver. Your liver can like give it some oxygen, metabolize it and turn it back into energy. But what happens if you have a high amount of d-lactate is it kind of plugs up the machine and blocks it. So that all of this L-lactate that you would normally be able to produce and then break down and turn back into energy, you can't. And it builds up in the tissues and it creates really bad post-exercise malaise. And you can have like muscle soreness for days and days after this. D-lactate intolerance was, for me, one of my biggest causes of chronic fatigue syndrome. And now, currently, I don't have chronic fatigue syndrome anymore. I don't get any post-exercise soreness. I can go to the gym, I can train. But what this is telling me is I still am producing more D-lactate in my body than an average person. And I want to correct this. I want to improve this. It really makes me wonder just how much better I actually could feel if I was able to get this number down. As you can see, this is 33 times higher than the midpoint. And the thing that's really interesting about d-lactate is the only way we can break d-lactate down is with probiotic bacteria, is with beneficial bacteria in our gut. In our body, biomechanically, we do not have any pathway to metabolize and remove d-lactate. So I must have done something. I must have shifted my microbiome to a certain extent where I'm producing less d-lactate than I'm able to metabolize with my beneficial bacteria. But this is still a problem. And I'm also going to work on this. But again, it's kind of the same thing. It's work on those probiotic bacteria and I should see improvements here. But this was really interesting and it painted a really interesting picture for me because I was over here believing that I was completely free of d-lactate problems. I didn't think it was an issue for me anymore because I don't have any fatigue. However, this test showed me you do still have a little bit of work. Also, reading this little text down here, d-lactate is produced by bacteria residing in the colon when carbohydrates are not completely absorbed in the small intestine. When not metabolized and transformed into other substances, it will become eliminated through the body's renal excretion. Okay, so apparently the body can urinate some of it out, but it's not at the same level of removal as L-lactate. You can clear through L-lactate really, really fast and you can even turn it back into energy. Your body really struggles with metabolizing d-lactate. So this is another reason that I decided to go for a slightly lower carbohydrate diet and avoid especially the starchy carbohydrate, because it's explaining here that this is going to be produced by bacteria residing in the colon when carbohydrates are not fully absorbed. So a GAP style diet is to focus on consuming carbohydrates that are easy to absorb. Therefore, the likelihood that you're going to have anything left over by the time it reaches the colon is very, very low. And as a consequence, I can not feed the organisms that are producing all of this d-lactate for me. My ethanol was low, my hydrogen sulfide is low, so that's all good. Nothing to really look at there. Equal, I didn't didn't really look into this. I'm slightly below the midpoint. I don't really know anything about this. I haven't really done any research, so I'm not going to go into it now. Vitamin K2 was good. I have a slightly higher gram-negative population in my gut than average. Gram-negative bacteria produce endotoxin. So this means when I do something that causes inflammation in my gut, when I have more leaky gut, I'm going to have an increased LPS burden. I'm going to have an increased amount of endotoxin that absorb, which means that my body is going to struggle with more of an acute inflammatory event whenever that happens. But this again is probably directly connected to the Bacteroidetes situation. And again, by reducing those carbohydrates and working on bringing the probiotics up, should see improvements here. This food intolerance section, I don't give it too much credit. It says I can't do lactose. I can eat lactose, no problem. I can handle oxalates, no problem. I have no idea about myrosinase. We'll just skip that for now. This is the money shot. This is the bit that you really want to see. This is the really nice bit at the end that gives you all of your useful information. So it's going to give you a tally of all of the different foods that are best for you, and it's going to have a little number associated with it. So ideally what you want to try to do, any number that is a 4 or higher, and you can see on my test I don't actually have any 4s. I only have 3s, which actually is a good thing. It means overall I have generally quite a good well-balanced gut. If you have anything that's a 4 or higher, you want to try to consume that at least 3 times a week. Anything that's a 2 or a 3, you want to try to consume it at least once a week, and you want to try to get as much diversity as you can. One of the best ways you can do this is to just try to combine as many of these things as you can. So one thing you could do would be have a fruit salad with all the fruit that you have on here. You know, I could do pomegranates, cranberries, strawberries, and bananas, and put them all together. There we go. I've got 4. And I could also have them with yogurt. There you go. Great. And then if you're going to get the vegetables, you can make a soup with them. So you could go through which of these could we make a soup with? Probably not chickpeas, but probably not asparagus or artichoke, but you could put peas, you could get onions, you could put some lentils, some broccoli, you know, and make a soup. You've got leek over here. You can even put lettuce in a soup, potato, cabbage. So try to incorporate some more of these foods in your diet. I'd say overall on this list, I don't really like some of these. I don't really like green tea. I eat pomegranates, don't really like strawberries. Don't eat this vinegar, but I eat lots of other vinegars. I don't think acacia tree is really a food. I don't know why it's on here. Could probably improve here, but overall, diversity is the key. Reduce butter. Anyone that tells me to eat less butter or eat less red meat, I don't trust them. So I'm not going to look at that, but fried food, yeah, like vegetable oils, avoid. And prebiotic suggestions. I tried lactulose. It gave me SIBO-like symptoms. So it tells me that it's not right for me just yet. It's still not the ideal situation in my gut to be able to tolerate the lactulose. So I'm not doing that. What I probably will do is try some of these others. Lactulose would be the best because it's a 4. I'm probably going to try some of these other ones that are 2. So partially hydrolyzed guar gum, I think I'm going to give that a go at some point. 2-fucosal lactose, I also want to try this. And something that's not on here that I'm also thinking about trying is modified citrus pectin. That's a prebiotic and a binder. So I'm interested to try that at some point. And my overall suggestions, Bifidobacterium longum, I already know. Lactobacillus, taking so many fermented foods. Eat the rainbow, surprise, surprise. Seasonal foods, you know, and these are generic suggestions. You know, this is not super useful, but everyone knows like you should exercise, you should have polyphenols, you should have fibers, you should eat the rainbow, all the same kind of thing. And you eat less carbohydrates. It's like, yeah, I know. So I hope you found it really interesting and it's giving you some insights. Also, I hope you don't judge me too harshly. I think overall, if you consider where I've come from, pretty good stool test overall. I was genuinely surprised that I didn't have any pathobionts or I didn't have anything really in the red ranges. And as I said, if you want to do one of these tests yourself, you can click the link below. It is an affiliate link, so I make like a tiny amount of money. But as a thank you for using my link, if you want to send me any of your Biomesight labs that you get done, send them to my email, testing@williamdickinson.co.uk, and I'll do a little review video for you for free. But hopefully, just having looked at this video alone and having a look at my Biomesight and understanding my approach and how I'm going about implementing changes to my diet and lifestyle and supplements to improve my microbiome, that's already given you a lot. And hopefully you can do a lot with that. So as always, if you have any questions or any comments or interesting, maybe you've got the same kind of presentation as me in your microflora, let me know. I always really love to hear from you. It's really nice to know what's going on in your gut health journey, because I know we all have very different journeys. And if you have any interest in booking a consultation so that I can review your test in a lot more detail, and also we can go over any other labs that you have, we could look at other types of stool tests, we can look at organic acids, we can look at hormone panels, we can do genetic, we can go over all of this and we can bring it in together with the symptoms that you have. The symptoms that you have are the most important thing. They surpass everything that we learn from testing. Your symptoms are the most powerful biofeedback that you have. So we can bring all of that together with the supplements you're taking, the foods that you're eating, your medical history, and I can help you figure out what it all means and also what to do about it. You'll leave that consultation with 3 actionable steps. So it's not all just about theory, it's about figuring out how do we build a very simple but effective plan so that you can start moving towards the health outcomes that you're in search of. And if you have any interest in that, there will be a link in the description below, or you can shoot shoot me an email, support@williamdickinson.co.uk. But that's everything for me today. Hope you found it really interesting and helpful. And as always, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.